Now that you've been introduced to the four-step process for constructing a confidence interval and performing a hypothesis test for the difference of two means, I'd like to take a moment to make some general comments. Unlike section 7.2 of our textbook, where we worked with paired data, in section 7.3 we have been considering techniques dealing with a difference in two population means, under the condition that the data are not paired. Just as with a single sample, we have identified conditions to ensure we can use the t-distribution with a point estimate of the difference of two sample means and a new standard error formula. It's worth mentioning that the difference of two means procedures closely mirror what we looked at for the difference of two proportions. So let's take a look at two very quick examples that illustrate what we mean by taking a look at two groups that we are gathering data from in which we would not be considering the use of paired data techniques. So for example, the difference in average heights of men and women at Santa Rosa Junior College. Obviously, those are two very different groups and we would not consider the data paired in that case. Suppose we want to know the differences in heart function following a heart attack for two different, that is, treatment and control groups of participants in an experimental study. Again, the data we gather from the two groups would not be considered paired data in that case. So I want to close this presentation by doing a very quick comparison of the two inferential statistics techniques that we have applied to the differences of two means, namely hypothesis tests and confidence intervals. So we begin by looking at the prepare statement for both inferential statistics techniques that we've been using for the difference of two means. And we see that the prepare statement's pretty much the same for most of it. In other words, listing the two sets of sample means, standard deviations, and sample sizes, as well as calculating the point estimate, which is the difference of the two sample means. However, the two techniques differ when we go a little bit further. For the confidence interval for the difference of two means, we simply list a confidence level. For the hypothesis test, though, we need to list a parameter of interest, and I've given a template for the statement that you would provide, as well as the hypotheses and significance level. Moving on to the check step for both inferential statistics techniques for the difference of two means, we see that they consist of the exact same two condition checks, namely the independence extended and the normality condition checks. And we close both of those techniques with the same sentence at the end if the conditions are met, that we can then move forward with the use of the t-distribution. Next, we move on to the calculate step. Notice that for a confidence interval and hypothesis test for the difference of two means, if the conditions hold, the standard error formula is exactly the same for both of those inferential statistics techniques. Moving on with the calculate step, we do see there are some differences, however, between running a hypothesis test and constructing a confidence interval for the difference of two means. Let's talk about the confidence interval difference first. First, we would find the t** value and construct the interval. And we would do that by using the RGuru mean inference population 1 minus 2 tab using the t-statistic method for confidence intervals to find the interval endpoints and the degrees of freedom. And then once we have the degrees of freedom, we use that value, accurate to 2 decimal places, in the RGuru probability distributions probability calculator to find t**. And then at that point, we would complete our interval sketch. For a hypothesis test for the difference of two means, however, we would begin by computing the t-score using the formula shown on the screen at the right. We would identify the p-value in a sketch by starting to sketch the null distribution. Then we would go to RGuru and use the RGuru mean inference population 1 minus 2 tab using t-statistic method for hypothesis test to find the p or probability value. At the same time, we would also double check our point estimate, standard error, and t-test statistic value, which RGuru provides. And for our fourth and final step of our inferential statistics techniques, which is the conclude step, I've shown on the screen here the differences between confidence interval statements and hypothesis test statements that you would do for the difference of two means. The only thing I want to highlight is that for the hypothesis test, notice that we're really doing two things. First, again, we're evaluating the hypothesis test, that is the null hypothesis, by comparing the p-value to alpha And then secondly, you would write a sentence that provides a conclusion in the context of the problem. And that concludes this presentation.